welcome to another episode of Bags Chat. My name is Mitch Patson, and as always, we're joined by Ethan Daffy. And today we are previewing our round 7 clash. Quite crazy how quickly their season has gone. Geelong v Carlton, Saturday, 27th of April, 4:35 for the third time in a row on a Saturday afternoon at the MCG, though this week, not Marvel Stadium, which is good to see us return to the home of footy. But first things first, Daffy boy, how are you? And just very quickly give us a bit of a insight of your thoughts just quickly for the game this week.
No, I'm feeling good. I think I often say I'm feeling pretty good at the start of an episode, but no, I'm feeling good, mate. Obviously, footy starts again tonight. We're filming this on the Wednesday, so with the Melbourne-Richmond game, which I'll be attending, they're always a good game, those ones. I think there's something about the night one, the Anzac Day Eve. I know the Anzac Day one's obviously the main set up, but there's something about these games. There's always an extra bit of intensity. But me and Patto were just talking about it off air in terms of rivalries and stuff like that. That there's something about we talk about Carlton Collingwood. We don't need we rate the Anzac Day events. It's a great day, fantastic. Nothing wrong with the Anzac Day game, whatever, Essendon Collingwood. But with Carlton Collingwood, we don't need an event or a circumstance or whatever to have that rivalry. It's just a little bit of, I know it's a bit off topic in terms of Geelong, but we were just talking about, I just want to see people's thoughts about that because it's funny how they talk about different rivalries and stuff like that. But the original rivalries, Carlton Collingwood, onto the Geelong game. It's a Geelong. I don't know. They're looking good. They're looking good, but I feel like because I know my mate's gonna be watching this with an absolute hawkeye this whole episode, so I've got to watch my words. But I rate Geelong. Obviously, they're a professional outfit. They're a great club. That's why you're up there challenging for so long, decade wise. Probably what is it now? 17 years of almost been challenging for premierships since 07, since they won that first one of the lot. So. Credit to them. They've got some superstars on every line. One that'll be missing out, which we'll touch on. But yeah, Cats 6-0. No one expected it. I think it's their first big challenge. So I know they played the Lions at the Gabba last week, but I think the Lions aren't all there currently. So I think their biggest challenge is the Navy Blue Army at the MCG, even though it's their home game, which I just realised.
Yeah, well, I think it's just because they can't really send us to HBA
No.
anymore. Because I always called it Skilled Stadium in back in the 2010s. It was Skilled Stadium. That's what I kind of know it as. But I think what are they in the song Down at Gardenia Park?
Park.
Gardenia
That's
Park.
the official name.
Yeah, so they bloody changed their name more than I changed my undies, Daffy boy. So I'm not sure. It's like kind of like gives me a bit of a reminder of the People First Stadium up in
I knew you to say that.
But a quick one about what we were saying in terms of Geelong just always being consistently up there, and I think it's a credit to them because it's saying that ever since 2007 when they won their first premiership, of this kind of modern era, it's saying that they've really held a very good structure you almost say they almost 20 years. And last year was probably their only down year, and they were still around the last few rounds, they were still a chance to make the 8. So it's not like they were absolutely blown out. And I don't know why, but at the start of the year, so I did a prediction on my other channel, and I don't know why, Daffy boy, but I put Geelong as 15th on the ladder. And I don't know why. I was just I was thinking they have to be, they have to be in some sort of rebuilding stage. And I fucking kicked in the bum after that because they are right now, they are one of the best sides in the competition, if not the best side in the competition. And you mentioned there about how it's a test for them. I think it's by far their biggest test because Brisbane arguably is a very good side, but they aren't themselves this year. So it's another chance after last week. They proved themselves. Last week against Brisbane up at the Gabba, who haven't won a game at the Gabba this year, which is crazy to think about. I think they've already played 3 games up there already, and they've lost all 3 of them. So that's another story in its own right. But also Geelong now, like overcoming that test last week in the wet, now coming up against us, and the forecast looks good on Saturday at the MCG. So it should be a good game of football. But yeah, I just think it's a big test for both teams as well, because like we obviously responded last week against the Giants, who is once again another good side of the
Great.
competition. And now it's another chance for us to really respond this week. But we're going to move on now to the injury list. Now, last week we obviously touched on our large injury list. We went through all of the names on our injury list, but this week we're just going to try and stick to some players that I guess are notable in terms of maybe returns, but also an extension in their injury timeline. But we're going to start off with Jake Wienering and Zach Williams, who of course is a test to play this week. They were both injured last week. Zach Williams got subbed off at halftime. Wienering hurt his ankle towards the end of the second quarter, and we thought he was going to maybe miss the rest of the game, but of course he got back on. So I expect Wieters to play. Zach Williams, I'm not too sure about, so that's a bit of a conversation before I throw it to you, Daffy Boy. Chera, Cunners, and McGovern are all 1 to 2 weeks away. I know that Chera is, I think, classified as one, Cunners as well, but I think McGovern is 1 to 2 weeks away. So it's another conversation where Chera, you expect him to be back next week, but Cunners is another name that is always on the injury list, and you see him as 1 week away. I'm not confident until he's actually on the team list for that week. So whether he comes through the VFL, I'm not sure. But Chera, Cunners, and McGovern are all 1 week away. Sard and Fogg are both 5 to 6 weeks away. Fogg, of course, has been extended with that wrist, so I think his is officially 4 to 6 weeks, and Adam Sard is 5 to 6 weeks with that hamstring injury. Jesse Motlop, Caleb Marchbank, Jack Martin, 2 to 4 weeks. Boy, oh boy, wowie, Daffy Boy. So I'm going to throw it straight to you. Injury list, try and go through all those names and try and stick to maybe Jake Wienering and Zach Williams. Your thoughts on that if you think they might play this week, but also touch on the rest of the names as well.
Yeah, it's for me, it's a long injury list. I'll start with Wieters and Zach. Yeah, I think Wieters is definitely a lock in terms of his corky's fine. He said his corky bled on the inside.
Yeah, so was it an ankle? It was an ankle.
No, corky. Yeah, it was a corky on his calf or something like that.
A calf or like high.
Oh no, it was quad.
Yeah, quad, but then I heard ankle.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
Yeah, it was definitely the corky, because that was what was kind of not holding him back, because he played pretty well with the corky. But that's just Wieters for you. But yeah, I think Wieters will play this week. I think he has to play. I just think, I think he'll be fine to go. Corky's, it seems like he's a professional guy, so he'll get it going. It's still, what is it, Wednesday now? 4 or 5 days to really get it right. And then Zach, he's just a corky as well, same thing. I feel like they might go, I think it was more precautionary too on the weekend. So if it was that, maybe he does play. I think we need him against the Cats. I think we need him in terms of pace, but there's always a guy you can bring in through the twos, and that's got by the name of Alex Chincotta, who did have a very, very solid game in the middle for the twos on the weekend. He played really well as a midfielder, but I'm sure they'll just put him down back. With the other ones, Chera, Cunners, Garv, I feel like Cunners might come into the twos next week.
Yeah.
And I think Chera will come in. I've got a feeling Garv's going to play that Collingwood game. There's just something in my head thinking he will play that game. I don't know why. But there's just something about it. Gov playing in those big games, taking a big hangout. There's just something in my mind. I don't know if that's just me being a dickhead or or just thinking the right thing. But yeah, Fogarty's the one, Patto.
Yep.
That really, when I was looking through the injury list, I was worried. I was looking to see if Motlop was ready for round 2 next year or something. But yeah, with Fogarty, it's 5-6 weeks, and the timeline really isn't there. It's they're seeing it in round 11 if he's going to be all right. But the way I look at this, and also with the Motlop, Marchbank, and Martin, we're getting these players back in the second half of the year.
Yeah,
we're getting these players back second half. We're 5-1.
Yeah,
we're 5-1, Patto. If we can win this weekend, Jesus, get those players back second half of the year, hit the finals hard like we kind of did last year. In a sense, I think we got a lot of players back and fit probably that second half and that during that winning streak. Those players were coming back, and we'll get a lot of continuity heading into the biggest time of the year, which is September. So obviously it's not ideal to have these players out now, but if we're going to have them out, I'd rather have them out at the start of the year And yeah, Chair will be a big hit for Collingwood because he tore him apart last year.
Yeah. It's an interesting conversation with Chero because you don't know what's going to happen with potentially Walsh. Because I know last year when they were both playing, Walsh then
Yeah.
transitioned through to the half forward, which I didn't mind. I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
mind
good.
that because
Yeah.
like we all know how great his high meters gain is, and if he can get
Mm.
more of the ball around that half forward
Yes, that's going to be good for
box,
us.
drive
Yeah.
it forward. My God, like Charlie Kern,
Yeah.
like especially with the 666 rule, if they can get a quick center clearance off the back of Mark Pitnet, hopefully tapping it down in that ruck, they can get it to Walsh at the half forward flank. They can fire it forward, and who knows, Harry Mackay might be in the forward line in a few weeks' time, mate, against Darcy Moore. So let's let's try and stick to the Cats. We already expect Carlton to win against the Cats, so it's already
Oh, no.
that's a joke. That is a joke so especially to your mate who's watching it, who is a Cat supporter, but also to my mate Tom, who is a diehard Geelong supporter, who gives me a lot of stick about when I talk shit about Geelong, he will give me a bit of a word. So if we lose this week, I'll probably do the podcast next week for the review. So, but yeah, just to touch on Zach Williams. So, of course, it was a knock to his Achilles. So very precautionary. We mentioned it in the review episode last time. So it's a knock to the Achilles, and I don't know if they do manage him because he has played a lot of football this year, but also it's
Yeah.
Zach Williams, and we are down in injuries a lot. What we are down in men in that in the defensive half, especially off that half back flank. So, but you also mentioned there about Chin Cotter, who can play that very
Yeah,
similar
for sure.
role. So, and Lockie
Yep.
Cowan played well last week as well. So,
Yep.
I think he was in my ins and outs last week. So I brought Cowan in, and I think it was a good player to bring in, especially to cover that side role. But I do like Chin Cotter coming in, and that's only if Zach Williams doesn't get up. So we're now going to move on to our ins and outs stuff, where I'm going to throw it straight back to you. Your ins and outs, and also a sub. Have you got any?
I think we're going to go if those two guys play. I think we're going to be unchanged.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to be unchanged for the first time in about 58 years, I reckon. But no, I think we'll be unchanged. Touchwood, Williams, and Weeders get up. But like we said with Williams, I think if he does not play, I think Chincotta comes straight in. He played a game he played a game in the twos last week. I've just banged on my blind next to me. Apologies if you heard that. If you're listening on your way home from work on the Spotify stuff, that would be fine. But no, I think that's probably the necessary kind of in and out. And with the sub, I think it's got to be. I think I liked him as a sub on the weekend.
Yeah.
He just provides a bit of a spark, especially against the Cats. You kind of need that midfield depth because they got superstars in there, and they got some good young guys now in there with Tanner Bruin and Jai Clark, and obviously you got Patrick Dangerfield. He goes all right for himself. So yeah, I think an unchanged team is good because they're going to be having a changed team. They're going to be having a changed team this week. So, and a bit of continuity, like I say, with the same blokes, knowing their roles. Cowan into his second game. I thought he was really good on the weekend, but I think when you get into that second game, you feel more comfortable at the level. So, yeah, those are my ins and outs if Williams is out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned there about the changes that the Cats will have to make. One of their vital changes is Tom Stewart, who's in that half. And I am disheartened. So a bit of off the Carlton chat at the moment. I brought Tom Stewart in 2 weeks ago from Supercoach when he was cheap. So I'm like, you beauty, I'm going to get on Tom Stewart. He's had some pretty low scores. I'm going to get him on. And of course, he gets concussed this week and he's missing this week. So I am not too happy about that. But also, yeah, look at it from a Carlton point of view, and you are a little bit like you don't wish any injuries on anyone, but with Tom Stewart,
nice.
kind of do. You kind of do. You are a little bit happy about that, but yeah. So they're obviously forced into one change, but pardon me,
Yeah,
just lost my voice there. But they might actually make 2 or 3 changes as well because we mentioned before we press record, Cam Guthrie is a chance to come back into this side, and whether he comes through that VFL side, I'm not too sure. Whether they maybe bring in Reece Stewart again for Toby Conway, I'm not too sure. Like even Toby Conway makes way and give Reece Stanley that sole ruckman position, I'm not too sure. But But my ins and outs, I do have one change. So Zach Williams is, like obviously if
Oh,
Zach Williams
yeah,
does make way, I'll make
yeah.
two. But I actually do have one change without anyone out for this week, and it's Jack Carroll in, Arazo
Okay.
Fantasia sub.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yep.
the reason for that is obviously MCG is a
Yep.
bigger ground. I think it's more of a midfielders dominant ground, and you need to bring
Yep.
in. We don't have a lot of midfielders. We don't have a lot of
We
transitioning midfielders. I mean, what we have: Cripper, Walsh,
Hewitt,
Kennedy.
Hollins probably goes in there.
I don't think I saw Hollins at all in the set amounts attendance.
Yeah, got a set of clearance. They got a set of clearance.
Like I'm saying, like genuine.
I get you. Yeah, I get you.
Like I'm saying more like, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So, the Orazio conversation is interesting because I think the first thing people look at with him is where's his touches. Where's his touches? He's such an interesting player for me. I don't think he's a touch guy. I don't think he's that guy. I know he had one. I think he had one kick on the weekend, which led to a goal. So I don't think you. I don't know. Do you bring in Moyer who kicks 3 on the weekend?
No.
Do you bring him in? No. I don't know because with Fantasia, I don't know. I feel like there's something about him that when he has that moment, he's setting up a goal. He's setting up a goal, setting up a moment. And I think against a team like the Cats who take their opportunities, do you play him? I don't know, but I agree. I think you could play Carroll. I don't know. There's just something about Fantasia for me that I think there's something there. Like when he takes a mark inside 50, he's kicking the goal. If he's got the ball outside 50, he's hitting Charlie. You know what I mean? It's just something about that. Even that Brisbane game, he set up about 4 or 5 goals in that kind of period where we were going, bang, bang, bang. So it's a tough one because I've been reading social media the last 2 days, and it's been a mixed kind of, I guess, opinions on him, on his performances. I think on the weekend he was very, very quiet, but it's, you know what I mean? He's I don't know. He's like a Cunningham. People go, oh, he's had 10 touches, but 10 of his touches are quality. So I don't know, but I agree. Carroll could definitely start.
Yeah, well, like the only reason why I would bring Carroll in is because that means that we don't have to bring Hollins on the outside. And the only reason why I think Hollins was playing as that centre bounce player is because Walsh was out. So I think if Walsh comes in to kind of cover that void, that means that Hollins can then play on the wing a little bit more, and that means that can transition with Cottrell. And I think Cottrell can then get more of a chance as a half forward player. I think there's a lot of opportunities like with both sides as well, because Carroll can come in and then that means that he can transition Hollins more to that wing position. And like there's a lot of things you can do, but also if you keep Carroll as that sub, that means Fantasia can play as that half forward. And I'm more looking at Carroll being that vital midfielder that I think we need as that left foot in there as well, because I think we're a little bit too predictable, especially since we do get a lot of first-hand clearances as well because of Pitnet in the ruck. I think if you chuck Carroll in there as well as a bit of a different look, because you have a lot of, like all of our midfielders in there are right-footed. So if you have Carroll in there to give him a different look, and I don't know if it's like you maybe bring Carroll on in the third quarter to give that different look. I'm not sure, but I'm more looking at as Fantasia is more threatening as a sub because you can bring him on. And
I do agree.
Fourth quarter, Orazio Fantasia, and say if you sub, I'm not too sure, but if you sub someone in that forward line and Orazio fresh legs, I've always liked Orazio as a sub. And the past few weeks, I've had him in the side, and it's not because he had a poor game on the weekend. I thought he was solid, but I saw it as at halftime, we were getting smashed in the midfield and not the ruck tap, more the midfielders as a whole. And we were getting kind of
in the Giants game.
In the Giants game, in terms of like not smashing the midfield, but we needed more midfielders around. Like that's where I think it's a different look from the TV to the game. You do view it a little bit differently, and you can look at the stats, but I was looking at it more in terms of at a halftime break, the midfielders had to step up, and they did. So it was good to see that. But Carroll also came on in the third quarter. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you look at that where Carroll I don't think Carroll had a massive impact, but in terms of another midfielder in there, I think it helped
Yeah,
the
it did help.
midfielders as a whole. So I'm more looking at as Carroll was activated at the start of the third quarter, our best quarter and our most dominant quarter in that midfield was the third quarter, and that was the premiership quarter. So yeah, like it's a tricky one. I wouldn't be surprised if we do go unchanged. Hopefully, if Zach Williams does get up, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do go unchanged. But if I was a coach, I would potentially bring in Carroll for Orazio Fantasia, but Orazio is still a start. But we're going to now move on, Daft Boy, to the opposition watch. Now, for the viewers who don't know this, we touch on a backline, midfield, and forward player for the opposition, and we kind of touch on how they're kind of a threat from our point of view. Now, we don't know what names we're going to read out. So, Daft Boy, I'm going to throw it straight to you. Your backline Geelong opposition watch. Who have you got?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I'm looking at their ins and outs. They're probably going to have to play Connor O'Sullivan down back again. He played against North, which, he's a solid young player, but that really opens up a massive avenue for us.
Yep.
Massive avenue, especially if we're winning the ball out of the middle. Without Stewart, like you look at their lineup, I don't know. You probably have to shift Blixarves back, or I'm just reading this thing now on AFL.com. They play Guthrie down back. He might play the half back role, but then Blixarves might have to go in defence. I think he actually might have to, and he can for sure. He's one of the most, probably one of the best utilities of all time in terms of his output at every position. Ruck, mid, wing, half forward, back, key back, as a matter of fact. But yeah, I don't know. The way I look at the Cats, they've got some good runners off half back. The Irish guy, what's his name? Mullen? Is it Mullen?
Mullen, but there's also O'Connor. They have a few Irishmen actually.
Yeah.
So Mullen. It's like Isley Mullen or something.
Yeah.
It's like,
but
like that.
Yeah, I look at their backline now, and they've got some good runners. But I look at this name here, and he's going to come up against his brother, I think. It's going to be Sam De Koning.
Like it.
He's probably the guy. Geez, I don't know if he goes to his brother now. I think he might have to go.
Harry.
He'd have to go to Charlie, I think. But depends how they look at it, because I think it might have to be Jake Kolajasny on one of probably on Charlie maybe, and then you go De Koning on Mackay, and then Blixarves has to come down.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? Yeah.
He has to now when you think about it, and whoever wrote that AFL.com has done their research, of course. But you look at their team, who else can go back on their bench? I don't know, Atkins can play half. They've got a few half back, half forward type players, don't they, that can kind of shift. I know we're kind of predominantly talking at the backs, but yeah, he's going to have to go back, Blixarves. But my guy to look at is De Koning and who he takes, because he's got to, when he reads the ball incredibly well, and when he's reading it well and getting those marks, and not when the ball isn't getting to ground and he's taking those grabs, he can have a massive impact on the game. So that's another thing for our key forwards to see as well. Just get the ball to ground if we can't get it there. I know Harry can take big grabs and Charlie can take big grabs, but when we have the opportunity, get it down, and look at it. Corey Durden in that last quarter. He worked his ass off all game without little touches, right? He was getting tackles and tackles and tackles. And what happens, Patto? Get your reward when the ball hit the deck and near the end of a game and you finish off the game. So, it's going to be important to nullify Sam SDK, they call him.
Yep. And I'm glad that you mentioned there about Corey Durden. He has been fantastic since he's come back into the side. And you kind of think about it, with Jesse Motlop being available, does he come in for Corey Durden? Probably not. Right now, probably not. I think Jesse Motlop might have to come through the VFL until a Corey Durden or a Orazio Fantasia or a Owies kind of coughs up a bad game. Because I think right now, heading into this game, I mean, I know that I had Orazio as sub, but I like the three small forwards. And Orazio is a small forward to a stretch, because he's more mid-sized.
He's much smaller. He's much smaller than I thought.
Yeah, he's small, but he's like, he's kind of like, he's mid-sized, but he's not as small as Owies and Durden.
Yeah.
But he's
small.
Yeah. Like he's small, but he's like, Is the taller small forward, if that makes sense. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah. So very quickly on the opposition watch. Now, I think SDK Sam DeConnie is going to go straight to Harry Mackay because
Yeah,
College Jasny to a
yeah.
stretch can cover, but I don't think College Jasny is going to go to Mackay. And if he is, my God,
You go to
Mackay,
Charlie.
hey,
You'll go to Charlie for sure. Colin
who?
Jasny. I don't think
Okay,
Colin Jasny.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then
yeah. I
SDK
don't think.
to Harry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
If Blixars goes on to Coney,
yeah.
that's the thing. Which he has to, doesn't he?
I think he does. I think he does,
Unless
especially with the ruckman being there.
O'Sullivan, maybe. Is he? Because they say he's a key back. So
Yeah,
who does he take? Jesus.
yeah. And you can also
Second game of that.
mm, you can also put like O'Connor, but whether O'Connor maybe tags Cripper.
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
that's also one thing about Geelong. Like you're kind of worried about that because you don't know what they're going to do. Because
But
yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it.
mm.
It's a tricky one, but like see how like you kind of just get a feeling right now. You're like, oh shit. They kind of you kind of
But
like a little bit
the
unpredictable now.
I agree. I completely agree in terms of unpredictability. But I think that can hurt you. I think that can actually hurt you too, because then you go, Blixars, has he played down back this year? If he goes back, fair enough. Does he goes on a really, really good forward who's in form. We got in TDK's in form as well, up
Yeah.
forwards. So that doesn't
Oh,
help them. And then you go, does O'Sullivan be thrown to the Wolves and go, gee, you're gonna have to take Charlie, or you're gonna have to take, I don't know. You know what I mean? So I think you go the safe option with Blixars, but continue.
yeah. I think Blake Sarves is the player to transition back, but there's so many names down there, and like you can
Yeah.
look at it as it could be unpredictable for Vossi, but also we just need to focus on ourselves. And if they're in all shambles with
Exactly
their
right.
unpredictability, my God, we can really take charge of that. But yeah, so my backline opposition watch is Jack Bowes, and he's in the past few probably 5 or 6 weeks he's been a bit more of that wing to halfback, but he's been like
Yeah.
it's quite hard to really name what type of players play their role most of the week because let's be real, I think they kind of change a lot, and Geelong's probably the one team that their players
Yeah, they do.
like they change their roles a lot. And but I think Jack Bowes has probably had a consistent season ever since he's moved there from the Suns. We all know how great Jack Bowes was at the Suns, and I think Bowes is a player that can really get going, especially with Stewart out. So I think Bowes is going to cover that halfback role more consistently, and I think he's going to take the kickouts, all that. So yeah, Jack Bowes is going to be my backline opposition watch. But as you said, there's a lot of players down there that can that is a threat from a defensive point of view. But we're now going to move to the midfield. Daffy boy, who have you got for the Geelong opposition watch for the midfield?
Once again, they're an interesting side. They've got a lot of guys that can go through there at any given time. But I look at the big dog. I think this guy is still the guy. I think it's Patrick Dangerfield. I've always liked the way he goes about it. He's a tough kind of 2000s type player. Bit old school, socks up, just does the dirty work, but also cleaning. And well, I guess his set shots aren't fantastic, but I don't want to jinx myself on here. But yeah, I just like the way he goes about it. Danger. He's not a dickhead. You know, he just does his thing. I know people give him shit on the field, but yeah, there's just something about him I like, and he's a player you'd love. Every club would love a player like that. Tough at it, but really good, clean type player. So obviously a champion of our game. But yeah, you look at the other mids. I know they've got younger ones, and with Mark O'Connor, it's an interesting situation. But I don't think he can tag Cripps.
No.
He might try to. He might try to, but he could. I don't know if they want to put their whole energy into stopping one bloke. Good on you, because Walsh will have 40, and Stewart will have 30. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think they'll obviously keep tabs on Cripps. I think O'Connor can almost play that, George Hewitt when he's playing a little bit more defensive, where he can, keep tabs on Cripper or
Yeah.
whoever you're trying to focus on, whether it's Walsh. It'd probably be Cripper being the in and under guy, and then you also work off him. So that'll be interesting to see. But Dangerfield, let's keep him quiet.
Yeah, I like it. Now, you know me, I like going a little bit different now. Of course, in the midfield, you kind of look at danger. Now, it's a little bit of a like I feel like I've kind of cheated the system a little bit here because I've kind of gone with a halfback flanker who's transitions through the midfield, and it's Max Holmes.
Yeah,
Now,
he's good.
we spoke about it. I don't know if we spoke about it through the episode or if we press record, or if we spoke about it before the episode. But Max Holmes is a player that he's obviously been re-signed. He is potentially going to be a player that is going to be like will make a lot of money, whether it's at Geelong or other clubs in the next few years. He's a player. He is an absolute player, and he's going to be a very solid player in the next few years. And I think Max Holmes, I think his best, I think his number one role is, I reckon his number one spot in the team is a midfielder. I don't think he needs to be a halfback.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that he has been halfback. But yeah, I think he's a threat through that midfield. But you also mentioned there about danger. And also Tanner Bruin. Like he's another guy who's been playing a lot as a midfielder this year, and he's been quite solid. But once again, Geelong haven't had a big test with a big midfield like Carlton. So, but Tanner Bruin coming up against Sam Walsh, that's mouthwatering. Cripper coming up against like O'Connor, that's mouthwatering. So, and Georgie Hewitt coming up against, I don't know, Buddy, who else in that midfield? I don't even know. But but like Georgie Hewitt,
half it.
Yeah, but he was like he hardly played last year. So
yeah, isn't it?
It's an interesting conversation, but Cam Guthrie would be vital for that midfield rotation.
I think so. Yeah,
play him, I'm not sure. But were you about to say something?
Yeah, I think another midfield conversation we can. I know this is off our to the ruck conversation.
Yep.
I think this is going to be massive.
Yep.
I think once again, I know the ruck contest we talk about it's going to win us the game, whatever. I think this is massive for Pitto and TDK again. This is massive for them. And he didn't play last week, Reece Stanley, did he? No. I'm looking at their team now. Yeah, what did he? It says he's managed. So I'd imagine he might come back in. Because Toby Conway goes all right. He's a big, long man. I remember in the preseason game, I was like, who the bloody hell is this bloke?
Yeah.
What planet did he come from? But it's just enormous. He's just keeps going. He's like, he's huge, but he's a good player as well. So he's young though. And with Pitto being that kind of bulldozer, old head, I know he's not old, he's only 27, but he's just something about Pitto where he's not afraid of the challenge. He's not afraid of who he's coming up against. And then TDK, if he has the impact up forward again, and I think with Pitto, he frees up TDK when he comes into the middle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He doesn't, I guess in a sense, he wears down the opponent. And then TDK comes in and goes, yeah, I'm coming in. You know what I mean? He's a fresh number one ruckman, really. He's good enough to be a number one ruck at most clubs. So it's that's another interesting conversation I thought would be good to bring up.
Yeah, well, like with Reece Stanley, so he obviously was managed last week because they're trying to give Conway a go. Now, they haven't played together yet, I don't think. So Stanley and Conway, I don't think they've played a game together. So obviously Geelong are heading in with like the approach of they want to have a sole ruckman and then have a chip in ruckman as a second ruck. Now, Blixarves has been that second ruck. Now, we already mentioned there where Blixarves, I mean, as Carlton supporters, we both expect Blixarves to go back. We don't know much about Geelong. That's when the Geelong supporters like your mate and my mate kind of touch on a few things, and that's why it's handy to have those guys because we don't really watch Geelong as much. I mean, we obviously don't watch the Cats games as much as we do as Carlton. So we expect Blixarves to come back, but also they might just bring someone from the VFL and Blixarves.
Who we don't know.
Exactly right. So we don't know. But from my point of view, I'm looking at as like, well, TDK and Pitto, they've obviously played very well last week as a combination. Do they, like Conway is young, as you've mentioned, he's inexperienced and he's playing on the MCG in front of two genuine ruckmen against one of the best midfield groups in the competition. Do you maybe bring in Reece Stanley for that experience to kind of help Conway and still play Conway? But also, because it could be a threat for Geelong also, because Conway is very tall and Reece Stanley is a solid, I mean, he's not really a forward, but when he transitions forward, he's solid. So once again, we are lacking down there in the key defensive stocks. We have Wettering and Young, obviously, and they can kind of take both, but that's when a Mark Baker or McGowan would be so handy right now. That could also be a big threat for them because they could have two big talls down there alongside with Hawkins, Cameron, and also like a Dempsey as well to a stretch. And they also might bring in Gary Rowan as well. So
that's
there's a lot of
too.
there's a lot of names definitely. And now I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. So when I said earlier about me already moving on from this game because it's already going to be a Carlton win, I'm already starting to regret that word. But let's move to the forward line, Dave Boy. As you just mentioned, there are obviously a few names down there. But who is your opposition watch for the forward line in the Geelong Cats? Because there's a lot of them.
Yeah, you just were talking about that, how with Gary Rowan coming back in, he's an interesting one. I'm not talking about him as my forward, but he's an interesting one on that topic. He's very I know he's older now. His best football is still good enough, but I think he's a very hot and cold type player. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring him in for this type of clash. Maybe he does. I don't know. But the one guy I look at, and he caught my eye when we played him in the preseason. He took a big hanger, and it's Ollie Dempsey. He is one of those Geelong players. I don't know, they pop out of nowhere and he's a star. So I don't know. There's just something about him that I don't know. I think we can handle him, but it's just those players we always let off the leash in past years. I know we aren't as good, that we weren't as good as this year, but he's just one of those guys. I just feel like you almost lock him in for 2 goals this weekend. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know, but in terms of the matchups, you got Hawkins, Cameron. I guess Ollie Henry's that mid kind of. He's taller than you think. And then you got, if they put Reece Stanley down there, or Conway down there, which, like you said, I don't feel like they're going to do it because they just don't do it. I think you can put Blixarves in the ruck, so as a second ruck if you have to. But yeah, my eyes go on Dempsey and these other small forwards who I think we can lock up. But if we let them off the leash, it's going to be a tough game because Tomahawk and Cameron are going to have their impact.
Yeah. So the question is now, I mean, obviously the forward line, it's probably their strongest suit, especially with Tom Stewart going down in the back line. So what do you expect happening? What do you expect to happen with their matchups down there? So obviously, let's hope if Wettering plays. Who do you think Wettering will go to? Who do you think Young will go to? And who do you think Kemp will go to? Because you mentioned there about Ollie Henry. He's another player down there, and I probably expected a Brody Kemp to go to a Dempsey. My God, we've got Ollie Henry down there as well. So what do you think might happen there?
Yeah, so the way I look at it very quickly without really, really analysing, this is not going to be exact. I think Weeders to Tomahawk.
Yeah.
The one that, I don't know who goes on Cameron. It might be Newman. In terms of he's got the height, but where does Lewis Young go?
I reckon he goes to Cameron.
Yeah, true. But does he have the running capacity?
I reckon he does.
Yeah. I think with the way
it is a tricky one.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they're very different players. He definitely got the height, and he's definitely good enough to defend him inside 50. But with Cameron, he goes up the ground. Look, he's a midfielder in a sense. So it's going to be interesting with that. And then, Dempsey, Stengel, Myers, and those three. You get your Chincotters, Williams, whoever's in there, that they go on those types of players. And then obviously they've got Dangerfield who goes forward as well. So we're going to have to try and sort that out. But we've got, you look at the other side and they've got problems as well. Forward, we've got 2 informed key forwards of the competition, young key forwards, the next kind of Cameron Hawkins or Buddy Ruffy type, duo. As we kind of talk about. And they've got to sort that out as well. So they're a great side, the Cats. They adapt, so they're going to be up for the challenge. We can't be going into this game thinking, they're 6-0. They're the ones who are under pressure. I think we're as much under pressure in this game because we've got to just keep winning. We've just got to keep winning and keep putting the pressure on and ticking games over. Because when it gets to the end of the year, you don't want to be, scraping your way over to the top 4. We want to be comfortable top 4 this year, and I think we can be if we, tick over these games that I think we can win.
Yeah, completely agree. Well said. So now, so my opposition watch is Jeremy Cameron, and the conversation with that is I expect it to be Wettering going straight to Hawkins and that being a lock-in matchup for the whole game. Now, you can kind of change it with Jeremy Cameron because he obviously likes to roam forward. into the like up the ground.
Yeah.
So maybe you put Lewis Young to Cameron when he's in the forward 50, but then when he kind of moves forward, you put Newey on him. And then you kind of like keep Newman like around there, around that like sort of like area of the high forward 50 into the midfield. But then if he wants to transition into the midfield, give it to a midfielder. Like you can't Newman moving up because, like you mentioned there, Brian Myers is having a stellar season, and last year he was one of the best forwards in there. And I reckon if he was like if the All Australian team was actually picked on genuine like role players, Brian Myers would be in within a heartbeat, within a like it's crazy. And like Tyson Stengel as well has found his form from when he first joined the Cats as well. So there are a lot of threats down there. But yeah, so Jeremy Cameron I think is going to be the opposition watch. It is a bit of a easy one, that one. But I just think when you look at the forward line, Jeremy Cameron for me is quite the threat down there. But also Tom Hawkins, a guy who's played a lot of football, is obviously a threat down there. But definitely, let's move on to our match predictions. So I need your bagger of the game, your point of difference, and your winner plus margin. Who have you got for this week against the Cats?
The tough one, because we've had, last week's win, there was a lot of contributors that you could put as, they're in form in a sense. I don't know if you can go past this bloke. It's going to be Sam Walsh, isn't it? I feel like against this midfield, he can actually be kind of the bigger body too. Against a Bruin, and he's not that much younger. He's probably a year or two younger. Guys like Jai Clark, who I think is on the outer in terms of selection. I'm hearing.
Yep.
I'm hearing he might be dropped in terms of his performances, just from the whole Geelong forums and stuff like that. But yeah, my bagger of the game is Sammy Walsh. I think he'll have 36 this week. He goes up a possession every week. So 36. I think he'll kick a goal this week. He almost did last week. His eyes lit up probably at half forward when he did that snap or whatever, but he missed. But I think he might break the MCG if he kicks a goal. Point of difference. There's a lot of guys in our team that unsung heroes in a sense. Not unsung heroes, but just under the radar. They do their thing. I'm just going to quickly look at our lineup. I do this late. I feel like it just pops in my head. I think it's going to be Jordan Boyd.
Like it.
I think Jordan Boyd can do a job on these small forwards. And he did last week against probably the premier small mid kind of forward in terms of Toby Green, who's a superstar. And he kept him to 4 touches in the second half when his job in the second half was to stop him. And Vossi looked very, very pleased with him after the game in terms of stopping Toby Green's output. So he'll be my point of difference. Winner plus margin. Me and you talked about it last week, off air, I believe. And we didn't mind Geelong winning last week. There's something about the AFL world every year where the undefeated team seem to be under the pump. I don't know why, in a game where they play someone who's near them. And we did that last week against the Giants. We knocked them off. I think we win this game, Patto, at the MCG. I know it's our away game, but I still feel like there'll be more baggers there than Cats. I think we will win this game by 19 points. I think it's the same as last week. Is it last week 19 points?
Yep, 19 points, yep.
I think it's going to be exactly the same. It'll be around that mark. It could be more, but I think we win by 19 points because I think they'll give it a real crack. But they won't let us go. They're not that type of team. So even when we're on, I think they're not going to let us go and just go out to a 6-goal, 7-goal lead.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do like it. I liked how you kind of like you spoke about there about the Cats don't like their experience that they show. Like they might not have the best list going around, but they never let sides blow them out. And if they do, the next week they make sure that they do not do the same thing. So, so my bagger of the game, I'm going with Blake Acres on the wing. Now, obviously with the bit of the larger ground, I think Blake Acres is going to be, I'm predicting about, I think he's due for a big Blake Acres game because like the wingers, they aren't overly strong at the Cats. Like they're solid, of course. Like you've got Holmes, but they don't really have a name that pops your head straight away about like a winger. And Bobby Blinkstars, once again, he's probably been in bloody Blinkstars again as once again, he's another winger who can also play on the wing. It's crazy, isn't it? Like
this is turning into Blinkstars watch rather than opposition watch. So, geez, but you're right. You're right. And Duncan's another name.
Duncan. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, like Blinkstars, it's started to transition into Blinkstars chat. So, pardon me. But yeah, so Blake Hagers, I think, is due for he's been very solid this year, but he has had his big Blake Acres game that we know and love, and I think he's gonna maybe kick a goal or two. But yeah, I think Blake Acres is going to be the bag of the game. Point of difference, I'm going with the other winger. Ollie Hollands. Hollands, the point of difference. He played very well last week. I think he's going to continue his form, and he's going to be the point of difference this week against the Cats. Winner plus margin. I'm sorry, Daft Boy, but I have unfortunately tipped the Carlton Football Club by 22 points.
Yes!
Now, I think, once again, I'm a little bit... Now, last week, my tips were shocking. I tipped 2 out of 8. 2 out of 8. Same. Shocking. Yeah. So I don't know why. I'm a little bit nervous about this game because, I mean, I've tipped the Blue Baggers, of course. I never tip against the Carlton Football Club. But this week, I am obviously a little bit nervous. But the one thing that I am looking at is Geelong. Last week, they had another big win against a test against Brisbane. This week, it's an even bigger test, and I don't think they've realised yet. I don't think we have been given the credit that we actually deserve, which I love. I love that we're going under the radar. Well, of course, we're talked about a lot, but I think we're still not really giving us the credit, which I absolutely love. So last week we beat Giants, who was one of the best teams in the competition, and not many people are talking about it. Just quietly. I don't know why. Not many. There's been more conversation about Essendon beating Adelaide Oval, Harley Reid dominating, just no one's talking about just beating Giants, who was apparently unbeatable a few weeks ago. So I think this week Geelong haven't realised that they're now versing a bigger test from last week. But also, I'm not going to eat my words because the Cats are well and truly up to this task, and they can 100% beat us at the MCG. However, I think we are due for a big game from last week to continue the form. And then we can really charge towards some form and hopefully transition our football into finals at the end of the season. But, David Boyd, before we wrap up the episode, is there anything else you would like to touch on before we end the episode?
Yeah, I think we need to emphasise the Cats. Like I said, we've both been saying a lot in this episode. They're a team that is always up for the challenge. Yes. They are always up for the challenge. And there's no challenge that's too big for them. They've reached the summit, which is a premiership, a grand final. So we've got to be in our game. We cannot be off for a quarter. We cannot be off for 10 minutes. We've got to be on the ball. The way we beat them last year, that early game, was the pressure. Our pressure, we were all over them. They just didn't like the pressure. I think that's the same this year. We've got to be in their face. I think the pressure, we broke the pressure gauge on Fox Footy. We were at 260 in the third quarter or something. Yep. They couldn't go further. They broke the bloody system. It was going all glitchy. But no. But in a sense, it's about being up for the challenge and not being reactive. Be proactive in the game. Don't react to 2 goals from Cameron. Don't let him get to 2 goals. Do not let it. Well, it's pretty hard to not let him get a goal. He kicked 6 against us last year and won, but in one of the greatest performances I've ever seen live. But just don't be reactive. Like we were against Adelaide. We were reactive against Adelaide. We were proactive against Giants. We were proactive. I know they got up 20, but most of the game, our pressure was pretty handy. And then in the middle, we were proactive. We knew what we had to do to win the game in the middle of the ground. And it was certain structures where we sat back and pushed into the ball. There was a few on First Crack. If you haven't watched First Crack from last week, give that a watch because that is great footage in terms of our midfield and how they set up structurally. But it's being proactive, Patto, and that's how you win games of footy. Don't react to Tomahawk kicking 3/4 time and changing your defensive. It's too late. Yeah, he's in the game. Do not let those guys in the game. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah, and I don't know if they even start that with the selection. Like, of course, we might have a few injuries, but don't be reactive. Be proactive and try and stick to role players. Like last week, they played Cowan. They could have maybe transitioned Matt Kennedy back to be the halfback because they were worried about, oh, no, we didn't really want to play. No, you bring in someone who can cover that role, perform his role, and he'll probably still play this week. If Zach Williams goes out, you bring in Chin Cotter. Like, there's players that transition, and this is why we are so hyped about the depth that we have nowadays because we didn't have this 5 years ago. Like 5 years ago, we were playing Jared Pickett and he got injured, and then next minute we brought in Jed Lamb. Like, are you serious? This is what I'm saying, Daf. This week we're bringing in Chin Cotter, who won the VFL Best and Fairest a few years ago. He's now transitioning through, and he can't even get a game. And people like us are like, how's he's not getting a game? But realistically, we kind of know why he's not getting a game because Cowan's kind of performing a little bit more, but also his role might be sort of suitable more for the defense more than Chin Cotter, and that's fine. Like Chin Cotter is going to keep like working his craft in the VFL, and he will eventually get his go. And when he gets his, he will be more than capable to fulfill to dominate in that position, whatever he is playing in. But I completely agree. I think we need to try and be a little bit more proactive with our selection, but also with our game structure this year, and that's what we've done this year. I think Adelaide was that's why it was a surprise against Adelaide. Like, it was like, what's going on here? Like, it's kind of more like, oh, okay, well, Rochelle's getting off a leash and Ranker's getting off a leash. We have to do something about it. No, you trust the system, and eventually we're going to get the job done. And that's what we did last week against the Giants. And maybe it was a little bit reactive, I guess. Maybe bring Carroll on, but it did make a difference because eventually the tide was going to turn into our favour. So is there anything else you want to touch on, David Boy?
It should be a good Saturday arvo at the G. Back at the G for the next 3 weeks. Cats, Pies, D's. So, and then Sydney at the SCG, I believe. So that is a big bloody month. And then Essendon at the G after Sydney, I believe. So
I think it's Port. Port then. Yeah, I think it's Port, Suns, then Essendon, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll deal with them when we deal with them. But Cats, big team, big game. Get there, be loud. That game on the weekend, that third quarter, even when we're a little bit down, we've got to be louder. Do not be proactive as supporters. Do not be reactive. Be proactive. Because the boys need you, whether they're down or they're up. Because we can change the tide. We're good enough now. We are that team. We've had so much trauma in the past years. Grab that trauma. See, that's that trauma. Pick it up. Throw it outside because it's nowhere near to be saying we've got a new team. This is our time. So get around and be excited. Be in the moment, like I said in the last episode, Patto. You know what I mean? Let's be in the moment because we're in the moment. We talk about it every episode. We're talking about the games. The moment now is Geelong. We're not talking about round 17. The moment's now Geelong, and we have to beat them this week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's me where I say, live in the moment. We beat the Cats on the weekend. I'm buying grand final tickets after.
And I'll say the same too.
Be in the moment. Be in the moment. But I mean, like, that's a good way to wrap up the episode. So well said, Daft Boy. But yeah, so every single blue bagger out there, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure to try and give us some love on all of our platforms that you see us on, but also to AFL supporters from a wider base. Make sure to try and get around our podcast. Every single time that we play against our opposition, we have tried to transition from last year to this year, trying to focus more on the opposition. Like, of course, we are a Carlton podcast, but we want to try and speak more about the opposition as well, because we obviously both love Carlton, but we also do watch a lot of football. So I think my opinion is somewhat questionable most of the time, but I do try and watch as much AFL football, and I'm sure you do, Daft Boy, as well. So I don't think it's anywhere near valid as some of the professionals at Fox Footy and all that stuff, but we do try our best. So to every single blue bagger and supporter out there, make sure to like, comment, subscribe on all the platforms you see us on. But to you, Daffy Boy, and to every single blue bagger out there, up the baggers!